Unprepared isn't scripted or edited. There are no redos, and when we screw up, it's going live. This works for our show, but it is no way to run your e-commerce business. Our partner Rewind is here to help. They will help you back up your Shopify store with automated backups of your most important data. Rewind should be the first app you install on your store to protect it from human error, misbehaving apps, or collaborators gone bad. It's like having your very own magic undo button. It's trusted by over 70,000 retailers, from side hustles to the biggest online stores like Gymshark, Gatorade, and Movement Watches. Best of all, if you reply to any of their welcome series and mention Unprepared, you can get your first month free. All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Unprepared. Happy New Year to everyone, though this is probably not going to come out for like 2 or 3 weeks. Today, welcoming to the show, today we're going to talk about capital for e-commerce brands and how to scale. And we're welcoming Alec from Settle. Welcome. How are you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, just yelling at my nice camera, as you kind of pointed out. So yeah, I mean, I think that this is going to be a topic that a lot of people have questions about, and I don't really want to like jump in with my kind of not as depth knowledge field. So I'm definitely going to pass it over to you now and kind of let you give people a crash course in the options of, you know, how to get capital to scale an e-commerce brand, and then I'll probably have a few follow-up questions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's definitely a lot of options out there. I think first you kind of look at what a lot of brands do is raise venture capital. It's not easy to raise, as the people have tried to know. It takes a long time, but I think the most important part is that it's expensive. You know, you're giving up ownership in your company. So for doing things, for providing capital that might be repeatable, like, you know, sales, it might not make too much sense. It's probably better suited for, like, you know, growing employees, building technology, things of that nature. Then you have other options like Stripe Capital, Shopify Capital. You know, if you're integrated to those platforms, it's fairly easy to get, but do look at the cost of that capital. It's quite expensive, so just make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. And then you have other players like Clearbank, Wayflyer, and things of that nature. Um, and then we started this company kind of because of that reason in November of last year, just trying to find a easier way, less friction, a little cheaper cost of capital to give working capital to these brands. So we launched in June with just a few companies, and since then it's really been growing like a weed, mostly through word of mouth. So I'm very appreciative to the companies that we work with. So we're currently working with 160 brands and just ramping quickly. And I think the one thing that differentiates us than just straight capital is that we're an accounts payable platform. So we'll pay your vendors through the platform to make it easy for you. And then if you want to get capital from that, then we're effectively financing your payables. So we'll pay your vendor and you can pay us back, you know, 30 to 90 days later.
Awesome. So let's talk about some of those more traditional models out there. The first you said was going through like the venture route, and you said that was expensive. And then you also said going through like more of like the kind of like Shopify Capital, Stripe Capital.
Yeah.
You know, there's PayPal Capital. Every financing, anything that like kind of deals with banking, kind of has their own capital solution these days. And you said they're expensive. Break that down and make it really, really dumb for me to understand. Like, why is that expensive money?
Yeah, the main reason I think is because they're underwriting based off your revenue data. So let's take Shopify, for example. You know, they see your sales, so they're effectively just looking at your sales and saying, okay, we'll approve you. But they don't really understand the full picture of the company. You know, the company is more than revenue. It's the whole cost structure of it. So because they don't understand the full risk of the company, they kind of have to charge a high APR, and they're really going after these smaller brands because what I think is smart to do, because, you know, if they can help the smaller brands, then that's going to help Shopify in the long run. So that's one of the main reasons it's expensive, and they form it in this financial product that's called a merchant cash advance. So they're basically, you know, going to take 20 to 40% of your daily revenue as repayment until you repay the loan and the fees. So when you really look at the APR of those loans, it's in the high 20s, low 30s. And that could be, you know, good for an early brand, but if you have a repeatable process, then you don't really want to give up a big portion of your revenue to these companies.
Yeah, I mean, 20 to 30% in fees is outrageous. outrageous. Even if you're talking about, well, I guess this even lends into to my next question is, what about just going the traditional route and just going to like your local bank or, whoever you're banking with?
Definitely a great option, given their cost of capital, because they have a bunch of deposits they're trying to put to work. So usually the cost of those loans will be cheap, but it's very hard to get. And if you do get it, it's probably a 30-day process at best. So that could put you in a bind, especially when you're trying to spend time on growing your company. Um, you don't really want to be spending 30 days to get a loan. But I think the main issue there is they don't really understand how to underwrite e-commerce companies. So they'll mostly look at like how much cash you have in your bank. And when you have these e-commerce companies, you need to make inventory purchases and then turn that into revenue, you're going to have cash flow gaps. So you definitely, unless you have just a lot of money in your bank, it's going to be really hard to get. So, and that's why a lot of companies, until they really hit like 100 million in revenue, that's not really an option for them.
Yeah, I mean, I asked the question I kind of knew the answer to on purpose, but I know. So, just if you take anything out of this, I want you to take this to heart: is you need to establish a relationship with your bank early when you don't need money, because of exactly what Alec just said there is like it could take up to 30 days. It doesn't matter what it is. Just get a line of credit established. Let them know what you're up to. But another thing that I see all the time, not even with just the e-commerce brands, which is with young small businesses in general, is it takes like up to 2 years for them literally looking at your tax records for them to like be like, oh, okay, we trust that you're a real business. If you're, just getting started out 30, 45 days in, I think the best you can hope for is a credit card with no interest, which is not financial advice at all. But I mean, those have high interest rates when you fail to deliver on that type of things. But like if you're talking trying to get actual cheap money, which is a concept that definitely comes into play further down the kind of the business roadmap, as you will, or the longevity of your company, it's establishing how to grow with cheap money. Um, Having a relationship started with a local bank is definitely a really good idea. But if that's not an option, let's talk about the third or fourth option, I guess, that was on the table. Venture capital, bad option. You're just literally giving up a percentage of your business. Going with some of those like more hard money lenders is what I would compare them to. With the Shopify Capital and stuff like that. It's expensive, but it is a little bit quicker. Where do you guys come into play? I know you said a little bit on it earlier, but I kind of just want to dive a bit more in there. Like, how do you help solve that problem, and how can you give people access to capital for cheaper without losing your shirt? I mean, you guys are in this business as well. You got to make some money.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're usually working with brands that are doing like 500K in monthly revenue. So they've proved out they're able to turn inventory into sales with like a healthy gross margin. So one of the unique things for us is because we're the accounts payable platform. We're connecting with your bank account so we can facilitate payments on your behalf, and we're connecting with your accounting software so we can record these transactions into there, just to lessen the work for you at month end or year end. So that gives us a rich data source to underwrite from. So we get a really good picture of the company. And the other good thing is because we're not putting cash into your hands, we're just paying your vendors. There's less risk there as well. So, my background is I used to be the head of credit at a firm for 4 years. So just really got to know these e-commerce brands that we worked with and kind of understand, their economics and things of that nature. So we're just taking a very novel approach to underwriting these companies that like, we're not looking at your bank balance to see like if you're going to repay us. So we're really just looking at, okay, you have a repeatable business here. We're making a bet on you that, by giving you this effectively more capital, you'll be able to scale and, create more revenue and thus become more profitable.
Cool. So talking about you guys being kind of the in between that accounts receivable and you paying their vendors for them. So essentially you're helping them get more inventory so they can then sell it again. And that makes it safer for you guys as a company to be able to offer cheaper money.
100%. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Awesome. So if any of this resonates with anybody kind of watching this show or listening to it, how do they get a hold of you? What are the next steps? What should I do?
Yeah. Easiest way, probably just go to our website, settle.co. Hopefully we'll have a .com pretty soon. But in due time. Yeah, there's a button there, schedule a demo, but also just feel free to reach out to me, Alek, ALEK at settle.co. Very responsive, and we'll be in touch.
Cool. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Have a good one.